who is doing all of the killing in the Bible. And you know what I found out during my research into that topic? It wasn't the devil. God had killed over 3 million people in the Bible, including his own son.
Billy Carson frequently analyzes biblical texts, offering interpretations that often differ from mainstream Christian teachings.
Isaiah 45:7. I form the light and I create the darkness. I make peace and I create evil. I doeth these things, saith the Lord. That's God speaking.
By highlighting instances of corruption and dogma, Carson advocates for a more personal and direct connection to spirituality, free from institutional influence.
Now, keep in mind, this is not about bashing religion. This is about exposing real truths. This is about giving you information that will make you begin to ask questions.
He explores the symbolism and hidden meanings within the scriptures, suggesting that many stories and teachings in the Bible are allegorical rather than literal.
1827, a couple hundred years ago. A couple hundred years ago, that was just added, right? When was hell added to the Bible? Oh, what do you mean? Hell was added to the Bible? What is he talking about? The lake of fire, the burning lake of fire, the eternal burning and suffering, purgatory. I'm gonna go there if I don't do this. That's why I gotta pretend like I love this stuff so I don't end up in this lake of fire. The fear is driving me to do this religion. And I'm not even aware of it. I'm just trying to save my ass. The rapture doctrine. John Nelson Darby. He added that to the Bible in 1827. That's not too long ago. I mean, that's literally just a couple hundred years ago. The rapture doctrine was added to the Bible as a cliff note. Pastor saw it as a positive thing that can put fear into people and energize the people and could bring in a lot of money. So they made it part of the scripture, became part of the doctrine, but it was a cliff note originally by John Nelson Darby, 1827. There is no rapture. If you've been sitting around kicking your feet up, watching the world burn, thinking, oh, the infidels will be burning in this unlimited eternal fire, and I'm just gonna be swept away off this planet, so I'm not gonna do anything down here. I'm not gonna put any of my energy into these people. I'm just gonna ask for forgiveness and wait for this God to come sweep me away into this magical heaven. You missed the boat. You missed the message. You're so far off, you don't even know what is up and what is down. There's no rapture. There's no magical rapture coming to snatch your body, your spirit out of your body and suck it up into some magical heaven. It's not going to happen. Another man, M-A-N, human being, wrote that. Not the creator of the universe. The mission is to bring heaven to earth. You missed that message, didn't you? The mission is to do greater things than he. You missed that message, didn't you? You're supposed to even excel and exceed far past what Yeshua's achievements were on this planet, not in any kind of magical heaven, right here on this physical plane of existence. You're supposed to bring heaven to earth. Can you master that right here? Can you love your brother? Can you stop falling for divide and conquer? Can you get the hell out of polytricks? Can you stop falling for the foolishness and go take a trip towards spirituality and visit inner space so you can expand the outer space? And find out who you truly are and the power that's truly inside of you. And find out that you are God walking in the flesh every single day. Because the same divine spark that created this universe is inside of your body. Can you do that?
Hell does not exist, and that's why we have so much fear in our world. I am so sorry that you are living in so much fear. It must be hard to live a life where you believe that hell is real. We must watch everything and every move that we make over here. I'm just surrounding you in so much love right now because I don't think you're alone. A lot of cultures and religions control people through fear, but my near-death experience freed me. And you know what happens when you lose the fear of death and you lose the fear of religion? You lose the fear of life. And that's when you can really start living life fully. You are an expression of God. How can you say that God is love and at the same time say that you will be punished in hell for all of eternity?
We've been lied to. There is no God up in heaven, like just waiting to come down and save all of our problems. There is no demonic Satan that lives underground that is just going to pull us in the depths of hell. Heaven and hell do not exist.
You know, it's just pretty interesting because when you look at the life of a person that's heavily into religion, believing in the one God system, and there's a couple of different religions there, not just Christianity. Primarily, they all have the same end belief that if you don't believe in this deity, the end result for you will be death, permanent death and suffering, but not death that you would disappear and never come back. Death that you are dead in the body, in the physical form, but eternal life of suffering going on and on and on. Do you understand what Christ is? Christ is you. We're all Christ. And until you understand that, you're going nowhere. We are all the Christ. Jesus never said he was coming back. He said the Christ would return. And by that he meant the consciousness, the Christ consciousness, the understanding of wisdom and ascension knowledge. It comes back and returns in every single person's mind. And by that method, the return is us. We are the second coming. Until you understand that, you're going nowhere.
So there's a pastor who said in a movie, there was a documentary movie about religious extremism, and he said that if he found a passage in the Bible that said that 2 + 2 = 5, if it's in the Bible, if the Bible said that, then he would believe it. He wouldn't question it. Yeah. And William Jennings Bryan, one of the lawyers from the monkey trial in 1925, he famously said that if the Bible said that Jonah swallowed the whale, he would believe it. So it has absolutely nothing to do with rationality. It has nothing to do with logical sense. Every logical fallacy, if you go look up online all the lists of logical fallacies, all the different types of logical fallacies that they are, every one of them has been used as an argument for God. And every argument for God is a logical fallacy, meaning it is logically invalid. Yeah. It's just that people don't understand what they're arguing. Like when they say, well, of course, there's proof of God. Look at the trees. That is the question-begging fallacy, the circular argument of assumed conclusions, where you simply assume that you're right, and your belief that you're right confirms that you're right in your mind. Sure. The question-begging fallacy, which I just described, is ubiquitous throughout all religions, not just Christianity, all of them. They all suffer from the same problem. They are all fallacious, and they are all entirely irrational. I'm going to believe because I want to believe. And why can't I believe what I want to believe? Well, these may be what the facts are, but I prefer to believe this. Yeah. Those are the kinds of excuses.
See, before I even go into, one of the biggest problems I have with Christianity and most religions is it gives you the ability to absolve yourself of your own responsibility, of your own wrongdoing. This is the biggest problem we have in society today. And the reason why we have this problem is because 85% of the world is religious. You see, at any moment, I can literally do something wrong and I can blame it on the devil. The devil made me do it. He whispered in my ear. He got up in me and he interacted with me and made me do this thing. It wasn't really me. It was the devil that wanted me to do this. So now I take no responsibility. Then I go on over here, take my little change and give it to the little plate in the church and say, hey, Lord, forgive me. And I'm good to go all over again. It's like a reset. I just hit the reset button on the video game. I'm good to go. And then guess what? I can do that over and over and over and over again, never fully, really taking responsibility for my own wrongdoing, for my own actions, and never learning how to correct myself the right way. And the way to correct yourself when you do something wrong is to first and foremost admit that you did something wrong. Not some outside source came to do it, and not some outside source came and tricked you and beguiled you. That you yourself made a conscious decision within yourself to do wrong. And then when you analyze and come to that conclusion and that reality, then you say to yourself, I screwed up and I'm sorry. And I forgive myself. Now my next step is to learn from what I did wrong, learn about those consequences that came along with that bad decision, and figure out how I can do it better the next time. Now I've been born again. What that tells me a lot about Christianity, and me talking to a lot of Christians and knowing the Bible inside and out, upside down, better than 99% of the pastors that are out there, I become to realize something very interesting. The majority of people, not all, listen to me, not all, but the majority of people that are Christians are only Christians for self-preservation. They're only caring about one thing and one thing only. I had a pastor tell me this. I'm doing this just in case it's right, just in case this information is accurate. This is a backup plan so I don't burn in hell. It's a self-preservation tool. In other words, 99% of the people that are following that religion are only doing it because they're afraid to burn for all eternity in a lake of fire. What I began to realize the more I analyzed ancient texts and tablets and scriptures and cylinder scrolls and papyruses and biblical canonized texts was that heaven and hell is a state of mind. The more ancient sages and wisdom keepers that I went and met all around the world and talked to and sat with in the bushes and everything else, it's all about a state of mind. And that people that believe in the religious texts as being a real heaven and a real hell, and the hell being the biggest fear factor of it all, primarily are operating in fear. And where there's fear, there is no love. So if I'm doing these ritualistic acts on a daily basis and begging this outside source to forgive and save me all the time, and trying to time it just right so I don't be cast into this eternal lake of fire and suffering for all eternity and all time's sake, what's really happening is I'm more worried about saving my own skin than really the religion. The religion is just the side thing there that happens to be around. But what's really happening is, just in case this thing might be real, I'm going to practice this thing. And I do mean practice. I'm going to do it as if, my heart's really into it. But when you dig down into the deep psyche of it all, the person is just into it for self-preservation. Jesus is not the real name. That's a fabricated name. That name is fake. More of a modern name. Matter of fact, the J didn't even exist until more recently. So it was really Jesus is what they were calling out. Jesus at the time that they were putting this canonized text together, this book together, this curated remix of information. And Jesus is Hail Zeus. That's what they're saying in ancient tongue, Hail Zeus. So every time you call on the name of Jesus, when you call on the name of Jesus, you are actually saying Hail Zeus. You're not calling on, the divine God King that you think you're calling on, the son of, the creator of the universe. You're calling on Zeus, an ancient character from Greece that actually is not a myth. Zeus is actually one of the original Sumerian pantheon.
So religion is not about reason. It's not about fact. It's not about rationality. It is not scientifically based, not scientifically sound. It is, I fall short of calling it insanity, but it's more similar to people with certain drug addictions. People who are addicted to heroin have certain behavior patterns that differentiate them from people who are addicted to methamphetamines, for example. Well, religion is an addiction, and it has certain behaviors that go along with that too, and then certain detriments that occur from that as well. And it's the same kind of reaction in the way that belief and self-conviction cause the flow of endorphins and a number of other elements that bring on happy feelings. that drugs do. It's very similar. And that's why people who were already grotesquely addicted to drugs become religious fundamentalists. They've exchanged a negative behavior, what is socially seen as a negative behavior, to what is socially seen as a positive behavior, but it's got the same end result. It's the same flow of endorsement. And I would argue that some I would not say that drug use was necessarily always negative. I certainly would say that religious adherence is damn sure not always positive. It is mostly negative. Religion is a net negative against humanity.
So if you are a Christian and you are worrying about going to hell and you're trying to be good not to go to hell, what you have is not love. What you have is fear. And the reason why you're participating is because you want to save your own ass. That's what you're doing. You want to save the skin of your ass. That's what you want to admit it. That's what it's all about. What if this fire is really real? What if this lake of fire really exists? I better do this garbage, because if I don't, I might just burn anyway. That's what it comes down to. And if you're operating from that, there's no love in that. It's only fear. Only fear. Period. Fear allows you to be controlled. What the Bible, majority of the Bible is, and there's some good parts in there, but the majority of it is just like watching CNN or Fox News. Nothing but fear 24/7 to bend you down and mold you over and get you in that low frequency mindset so that nothing works out in your favor, period. And if you don't believe it, I want you to get together 10,000, get together me, 1,000,000 Christians in one place and have them start praying, and let me see if the world will change the next day. It's going to be the same planet we on. The same people are going to run out and start shooting their guns and killing people. Ain't nothing going to change. You know why? Because they're praying to deaf ears. They don't know how to pray. A person that just goes to Bible study is not going to have the ability to make all these correlations, because Bible study focuses on studying the same things over and over and over again. Very little information, very little knowledge being transferred in Bible study. Very, very little, a tiny fraction of knowledge. They're never going to make you study the book of Deuteronomy in Bible study. They're never going to make you do let's spend the next 3 months on Deuteronomy and break that down. They're never going to do that. It's going to be the same old stuff, picking out a couple of different, a couple of verses, taking them out of context and trying to get you to apply that to your life without any real context of what was going on, no knowledge, no understanding. Some stuff in the Bible can be applied to your life and be great. Some of it can put you in a mental enslavement, a mental prison. So you have to be very, very careful with the biblical text. As with any religious text, you have to be very careful in what you're believing in and what you're allowing your mind to encompass as actual truth. There's things that are in the biblical text. There's things that are in the Quran. There's things that are in various different religious books that I think are phenomenal. I think that I can apply some of those things to my life and get a great result, which I do. Right? Thou shalt not kill. I mean, that's good. You know what I'm saying? There's good stuff in Proverbs and Ecclesiastes and things like that. There's good stuff in there. But you got to remember, it's remixed with a lot of craziness. It's remixed with a lot of sociopathic, narcissistic behavior. When 1 second you have God as all-knowing and all-loving God, and then the next second, he's a brutal, murdering killer. That's why I attribute the God of the Bible, which is actually not the God of the universe, is a entity, actually several entities, to be honest with you, because it's more than one God in the Bible. They use the word God singular, but that's a mistranslation. It's actually gods with an S. They slip up a couple times and say gods in the Bible with an S, but when they're trying to identify the monotheistic version of God, they always take the S off. When in true reality, when the ancient text, you find that the S was there. But these people were evil, brutal, ruling, psychopathic sociopaths, narcissists. And they were deadly people, very deadly, very, very murderous, killing people, ruthless killers. And then you pray to them thinking that that was actually the creator of the universe, when it's not. There is a creator of the universe. There is a divine love that exists that permeates the entire universe. But the one written about in that book is not it. And when I go into here, it's like I'm reading a comedy show. I'm literally reading a comedy show. Now, is there good stuff in the Bible? Yes. There is good information in this book. The problem is the average person can't separate the good from the bad. They have no real discernment. So they lump it all together. And because they can't really understand what's in it in the first place, they have no clue where to even go. So that's why they go to the building that's called a church or a kingdom hall or whatever you want to go, a temple. And they listen to somebody spew at them propaganda for 2-3 hours. And then they give them all their money and they go out of there going, "Whew, I feel so much better. I might make it to heaven now. Then I got a slight pop. I'm about right here, but if I do a little bit more, I might get to right here. And then I'm thinking I might, right before I die, if I could just say utter those last words right at the last second, I just might slip right on in." The creator of the universe exists? Not in here.
I'm sorry to break it to you, but right now we are going through the Great Awakening. We have to understand that we've been programmed. We've been duped. We've been tricked into thinking that there is some God up above or there is some Satan down below. These are metaphors, right? Heaven and hell do not exist. They are not a place, a physical place whatsoever. This was created to keep you in control. The Matrix has created everything to keep you in control. Now you have to be the one to break free of those limitations and understand that the only thing that you can do is raise your vibration and increase your energy in order to truly live a comfortable life right here on planet Earth. Because guess what? Your environment is not conducive for spirituality. Your job, your relationships, everything in your life right now is not conducive for spirituality for a reason. They want you to believe that you are just a physical body. The scientific world has created endless theories for you to make sure you stay right in your place, which is right here in the physical. Well, I have news for you. You are not physical. You are so much more than this body. You are not your thoughts. You are nothing that you think you are right now. You are so much more than that. You are the infinite consciousness wrapped up in human form. That's what you truly are.
If your God is all-knowing, omniscient, omnipotent, all-loving, never changing, and all these terminologies that they like to tell you, and you understand that as to be a supposed fact, never question it. But then at the same time, you can be quote unquote cast into a lake of fire for all eternity for punishment and torment for sins that supposedly, according to that same book and text, you had committed before the foundation of the earth. In other words, you were born a heathen, you were born a sinner, you were born this and born that. You're told that you're this person and that you're that person and you're so evil, and then you're coming out of the womb as this evil entity before you even have a chance to form your very first thoughts, cohesive thoughts. And then as you're growing up, you're told and programmed and just beaten to your head nonstop that you're a bum, you're a loser, you're a sinner, you're nothing, you're worthless, until you get on your knees and grovel. And then you tell me that that's an all-knowing, all-loving God that you're worshiping. When in true reality, it's a big fear factor. And all you're doing is trying to save your own skin by following the rituals and hoping that in the end, it was accurate. When Jesus disappeared from the Bible at the age of 12, he ended up in Egypt. And there's a place in Egypt right now where I'm taking people every year. I took people last year, taking people again this year to Coptic Cairo. And the place where he lived at the time that he arrived in Egypt is still there. The bed he slept in is still there as a shrine now. What did he go to Egypt for with his mom? To learn the Egyptian mysteries. He became an adept initiate of what? Thoth, the Atlantean priest king that authored the Emerald Tablets, who ruled over the land of Kemet for 16,000 years, one man by himself. That's what he went there for. And then after he left Egypt, he ended up in Tibet to learn Qigong and Reiki and all those arts, healing arts with his hands and moving energy through his body. Most likely with the monks. That has been confirmed by the Dalai Lama. Then he ended up down into India to learn the mystic arts, teaching reincarnation all the way back into Egypt. You can find that information in the Gospel of the Holy 12. Again, not in the Bible. Then he appears back in the Bible at the age of 32, riding on the back of a donkey. I called my son out of Egypt, the Bible says. Oh, I called my son out of, hey man, you're done over there. Come on back over here. Now we got to put you back in this story now because, you did your thing over there. It's all good. You got the knowledge. Okay, come back on over here because now we're about to proclaim you to be the king. And then we're going to slice your head off and jab you and put you on a cross and nail you to a cross and stab you in the stomach and take your blood and all that. We're going to do that to you next. So come on back over here because we got to finish this story. That's the foolishness I'm talking about.
I was always told that God is not a man that he should lie. And how do we know that? Well, because it's in a book or compilation of books that are purported to be the Word of God, even though everybody knows that every book of the Bible was written by men who lie. So what does that mean about God? Does God lie? God only knows, because all anyone knows about God is from a book written by men pretending to speak for God, a God who can never speak for himself. So how do we know that that's really what they're doing, that they're just pretending to speak for God? Well, let's look at the book of Job, for example. Therein, God says that the sea is shut up behind doors, and that the earth is a flat disk in the shape of clay when pressed by a seal, and that it has edges that you can grab and shake the evil off of it. And God says he laid a foundation for the earth, and he erected pillars on it, and then he took the earth, presumably by the edges, and then sat atop those pillars. And God also says that the sun will not rise unless he commands it to, because God doesn't know what the sun is, nor where it is, nor how big it is, nor does he know the true shape of the earth either. He doesn't know that he's got everything round backwards, that the earth goes around the sun and not the other way around. This isn't just some Bronze Age moron raving about what he thinks the voices in his head are trying to tell him. No. We are expected to believe that this is God speaking directly to Job in person, albeit disguised as a whirlwind. Because remember that people back then didn't know that air was particulate matter. They thought that air was a supernatural spirit that gave us the breath of life. And when things moved because of the wind or whatever, whether they're clouds or a whirlwind or what have you, then they thought all of that was supernatural and an animating spiritual life force. You really should read the book of Job, and God says some really stupid things in that book. Now, seriously, every argument is so bad and so dumb, they could only be the words of mere fallible men who didn't know anything about the world around them, pretending to speak for God.
You're fooling yourself into believing fairy tales. You have no understanding of what this information contained in this Bible really is all about, who wrote it, and when it was written. The Bible wasn't written in real time. The people in the Bible didn't write the Bible. The disciples were illiterate men. If you went to seminary, you would know that. I've studied all the seminary texts. They were illiterate. They couldn't even read or write. So who wrote the text? Who wrote Timothy? Who wrote all these books? Who wrote John? Who wrote all these books? Who wrote them? Guess what, guys? They were written long after they were dead. Thousands of years, 2,000 years after they died. The first book was discovered, well, the first text was discovered in caves around 100 AD. There wasn't even a book, just some text in some jars. And then some more jars were found in some more caves, and some more caves, and some more caves, and some more stuff was dug up over time. Between 100 AD to 900 AD, all this text was laying around and started being pieced together. 100 AD to 900, that's modern times. And what was on the text? They had handwritten copies from ancient Sumerian tablets, from the Mahabharata, from the Bhagavad Gita, from the Epic of Gilgamesh, from the Tibetan Book of the Dead, from the Egyptian Book of the Dead, from all these other texts that already had been there, from the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. That's where all this information comes from. And plus something from, of course, their own input. Because if I put 50 people in a circle and I sit here and we're all sitting in a circle, perfect circle, and I whisper into one person's ear, one sentence, 5 or 6 words. And they're supposed to then turn and whisper and whisper and whisper and whisper till it gets back to my opposite ear. Guess what? It ain't going to be the same sentence I said. The sentence is going to change. I guarantee you it won't be the same exact sentence. That's the nature of humanity. Everything is corrupted once a man touches it. I believe in a creator of the universe, of the multiverse even. Because why? My studies in quantum physics have showed me that there is proof and evidence that we are living inside of a creation, that there is a creator of all, and that this creation is imbued with divine energy. And that divine spark that created everything in the entire multiverse is in every single atom in my body. And because of that, I am divine and the divine is divine. So that means I am God and God is me. We are all God walking in the flesh. As a matter of fact, God is experiencing what it's like to be a human being in the third dimension, walking in the flesh through each and every one of us. Through each and every one of us. There's only one entity. There's only one consciousness. The fact that J.C. Clark may be somewhere across this planet watching this, and I'm sitting here across the other side of the planet watching this, doesn't mean anything. There's only one person. When I'm talking to J.C. Clark and you guys, I'm talking to myself. And when J.C. is talking to other people, he's talking to himself. We are all slightly different expressions of the same one consciousness. Separation is an illusion. Distance is an illusion. It's an illusion of the third dimension. Above the third dimension, distance doesn't exist. Time doesn't exist. The past, present, and future happen all at the same time. And there's oneness there, higher than the third dimension. It's something that we should all aspire to.
You believed it when they said that there was a God up in the sky. You believed it when they said that there was Satan living down below in some demonic gates of hell. All of this was meant to keep you in fear. And remember, that fear only means control and more people being stuck in the matrix. Let's break free of all those limitations and get in tune with nature.
What is holding us back from taking our birthright as claiming this planet as our own? Taking back control of this planet from the 100 families that control and run 8 billion people? What is stopping us from taking control of our reality and manifesting the life we want? Religion and polytricks. Those are the two things you guys got going on that are stopping complete advancement of the human race right now, today. Completely pushing separation, division, and racism, mental and physical enslavement. Those two things. Religion and polytricks. The two most detrimental things ever put into place on this planet to literally hold mankind back. You remove those two things, we got 99% of our problems solved. Literally overnight. If I had Thanos' glove, if I had the glove, sometimes I think Thanos might not have been a bad guy. If I had the Thanos glove and I can zap religion and polytricks, I'd do it in a heartbeat. Gone. And then let's sit back and see what happens. Why is it important to know this? Because it's important to know and understand who you are and where you came from, how we got here, and what happened in the ancient past. Because until we find out what really happened in the ancient past, we can't plan for a better future. Because the past is prologue. We're in a loop. This stuff keeps happening over and over and over again. We keep going through this vicious cycle of rise and fall of civilizations. We keep going through this vicious cycle of situations that happened in the past reappearing on our timeline and happening over and over again. See, if you go back in time to 2023 BCE, you'll find the same exact stuff we're going through now happening back then. Not necessarily with the technology level, but with the social issues. You'll find it. Every section, every era of time that you have in our current era, match and go back and study history for that previous area at BCE, you'll find the same stuff happening. It's like we're in a time loop. We keep doing it over and over and over and over again. Until we understand and know this kind of stuff, until we dig deep into the information that we've been fed and forced to analyze it, break it apart, rip it apart, and put it back together again, until then, we'll continue to go through this vicious cycle of rise and fall of civilizations, rise and fall of awareness and knowledge and ascension and wisdom. We'll keep getting to a certain point and falling right back down again. At some point, we got to learn how to walk, and then we got to learn how to run, you see?
Billy Carson and Graham Hancock unveil their enthralling experiences and stories about alien encounters, challenging our understanding of reality.
They are these beings that came from off-world.
So these are aliens.
These are aliens.
UFOs, the mysterious spaceships from other planets hold secrets that Billy and Graham are determined to unravel.
I basically said, is this ancient aliens you're talking about? Are those spaceships that have come from other planets? And he said, no. Those are vehicles for entering and leaving the spirit world.
Back then, I don't believe we had the technology to create a ARV, an alien reproduction vehicle. I think what I saw was probably a real UFO.
Wow. Are you the first black guy to see a UFO?
No, I'm not the first black guy.
Bonnie Hill, the first black man to witness an alien, was abducted along with his wife, marking a pivotal moment in extraterrestrial history.
Barney Hill was a black guy who came out, I think it was in the 60s or 70s, about his abduction situation with him and his wife. And him and his wife were abducted, and they gave an account of what these beings showed them as where they came from. And nobody knew where the Zeta Reticuli star system was at that time. It didn't exist in our star maps.
The discovery of Zeta Reticulus, revealed by the alien that abducted Bonnie Hill, adds another layer to the cosmic enigma.
Later on, it came out, a person says, wait a minute, and they put it together and said, this is Zeta Reticulus. We found this star system now. Now we know where they say they were from. Pretty interesting. The Anunnaki, they are these beings that came from off-world.
So these are aliens?
These are aliens.
Graham Hancock claims we are exploring realms of reality beyond the ordinary reach of our senses, urging us to expand our consciousness.
But we don't know that, and Rick is open to the possibility that we are dealing with areas of reality that are not normally accessible to our senses, and that become accessible to our senses by retuning the receiver wavelength of the brain, which is what he suggests DMT does. And I think that's very plausible. And at the very least, those who are interested in UFOs and aliens should be also investigating this line of inquiry.
He poses a profound question. Can altered states of consciousness help us grasp the universe's majestic complexity?
Can we use changes in consciousness to understand the majestic complexity of the universe in which we live? And I think the answer is definitely yes. And many of Rick's volunteers, I paraphrase, but they came back with reports that the entities who'd encountered them said, "We are so glad you've discovered this technology. Now we can communicate with you much more easily." You know, it's fascinating. So there's a technology for encountering other intelligences. And against that, this mechanistic, simplistic alien meme that's going around now that they're a bit like us, but they came here in higher tech, it's dull by comparison.
Billy Carson dismisses the stereotype of aliens as little green men with antennae, asserting they are actually hominids.
Now, what's interesting about these aliens is that they're not little green men with antenna. They're actually hominids, bilateral bipedal hominids. They look just like us.
Okay.
You slice them in half. They have two forward-facing-looking eyes, two hands, legs. They put their pants on one leg at a time like us.
But do they look more like us or more like us?
He boldly states that humans resemble these aliens because we carry their genetic material within us.
We look like them.
Okay.
We actually look like them.
Okay.
And the reason why is because we have their genetics and their DNA inside of our bodies. Now, what's interesting is these beings were a spacefaring race that broke away from the Pleiadian star system. The Pleiadian star system is a group of stars called the Seven Sisters in the night sky. You can see 6 stars with the naked eye.
According to ancient texts and tablets, there was a galactic conflict among the stars in ancient times, a testament to our cosmic heritage.
Now, these stars in ancient times, according to ancient texts and tablets, there was an ancient galactic war there.
Okay.
Most of the information from Star Wars comes from this text. And they had these destroyers like stars. They don't call them that, but they call them the Brahma-Astra and Brahma-Astra Honda weapons that actually can release a weapon that can destroy planets.
Okay.
Imagine if you were in a star system and a planet is being blown up and you're in a nearby planet. You got off of your planet.
Yeah.
This created something called space refugees.
Billy clarifies that the term Anunnaki is a general term, not limited to one race, broadening our understanding of ancient alien influences.
And so some of them came to Earth, and so Anunnaki is a general term. It doesn't mean one race. It's just like if all of us here got in a spaceship and flew to Mars and we met a Martian and he said, "Who are you guys?" We'd say Earthlings.
Got it. But they maybe would call us Anunnaki.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm Billy Carson from Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah.
Right. So they would get, they're Earthlings. That's one term, but we're all different races here.
Right.
So, but Anunnaki is a term to say those who came from heaven to earth. That's it. In Africa, they call it the Nituru, which means the same exact thing. The gods that came from heaven to earth and turned mud into a kingdom. Now, the civilization they built is the Atlantean civilization.
Hey, tell me, what happened?
So 2010, I came home. I was working on this big project called Fort Terra Nova, which I built. And Fort Terra Nova was on the History Channel, a Countdown to Apocalypse, the Nostradamus episode. And anyway, so I was working on this project. I come home, I'm looking at ESPN, and I'm looking at sports. About 9 o'clock p.m. All the lights turn dim, the TV turns off, and I thought my kids were playing a trick on me because they lived up in the room behind me, up on the second floor. And I look up, and there's nobody there. When I turn around, there were these two beings right there.
He recounts his own harrowing confrontation with an alien that entered his house, a tale that captivates and terrifies.
But they didn't look like they were real eyes. They looked like coverings of some type. And they didn't communicate with me through any kind of telepathy that I can tell, but I felt like my brain was shaking in my skull to the point where it started hurting, and I started screaming, but no sound was coming out of my throat. I can feel the air coming out, but I couldn't hear it myself.
And you were awake during this period? You weren't taking a nap or anything like that?
Taking a nap, no psychedelics.
Of course, yeah.
And my whole house, everyone was in. My wife at the time, my ex-wife was in the bedroom right behind the next wall. My girls were in that side of the house, a split floor plan. My boys were in that side of the house. The house was full of people. Nobody heard us or anything. I was screaming. A few seconds later, it stops, and they turn around, and they don't walk like a person. They kind of dangle. So they kind of dangled away, and they went right through the wall. And then, boom, the TV comes back, the lights come back to normal color. And that's when I went running around the house, and it was just traumatic for everybody, and it was like the straw that broke the camel's back. There was other reasons why, but I ended up my one son, Giovanni, he's told me I'm scared to even come around you, and still to this day, he rarely ever calls me or comes around. It's kind of like I lost my son. I made no money off of this. I got no exposure off of this. That's why I kept it quiet for so long. Lost my family, created a lot of dissension. I remember we were on a highway one day, and my wife was driving at the time, my ex-wife, and she slammed on the brakes, and it was like, just get out of the car, because the kids were scared. And I was like, I'm sticking to my story. I'm not changing my story because this really happened to me. And they just didn't want to hear it. But her parents were Jehovah's Witnesses, so everything was of the devil, and so it was a pretty traumatic experience. It took a long time to talk about. The only reason why I came out with that information was because I started running into a lot of people at conferences that would come up to me and tell me that they were having these experiences. They were horrified to talk about them. So I felt like if I would talk about it, I would give them strength for them to have expressed themselves and walk in their truth and believe in their experience that they had.
Graham argues that physical aliens arriving in spaceships is a materialist notion, urging us to consider broader possibilities.
I think that the physical aliens coming here in spaceships or flying saucers from other planets is fundamentally it's a materialist proposition. It's about tech and about material things.
It's like the Elon Musk worldview. It's not the consciousness worldview.
It's not a consciousness worldview. What was striking to me was a conversation I had with the late Pablo Amaringo, an Amazonian shaman, who painted his visions after he'd been on the ayahuasca journey. He would sit down and paint. He created thousands of beautiful, beautiful paintings. And in many of those paintings, there are flying saucers. So I said to Pablo, is this... I basically said, is this ancient aliens you're talking about? Are those spaceships that have come from other planets? And he said, no. Those are vehicles for entering and leaving the spirit world. And when a shaman talks about the spirit world, that shaman is talking about what quantum physicists would call a parallel dimension or a parallel realm. And I'm not denying that there are physical elements to the UFO experience. There certainly are. they do show up in radar traces here and there. There are physical elements to it, but exactly what they are is not yet clear.
Yeah.
Are they, as Pablo said, vehicles for entering and leaving, let's put it in modern language, a parallel realm, a parallel universe, rather than vehicles to take us across interstellar space in this universe? And then you come down to the consciousness issue. You come down to the fact, and I document this at length in Supernatural.
Billy provides vivid descriptions of alien facial structures, highlighting the uncanny similarities to human features.
That's horrifying, more like a clown. It's like the big overhead, right? When it kind of goes out like this. Yeah. No, it wasn't like that. It was more like the, almost like the ones you see in the movies, which means it told me right away that these movie directors or whoever's writing these movies, they know what these people
not
look
like that.
You see how it's big? His head is more like a big out like that with a big brow in the front. It didn't look like that, no. But that doesn't mean that he didn't see that. I mean, there's so many different people that exist in the universe. They didn't really have on what looked like clothes to me. They weren't really gray. They were almost like brownish, but they had very big eyes, 2 little tiny dots for a nose, a slit for a mouth. They never opened the mouth. They never opened. They never moved at all. They didn't even shake. There was no facial movements. I couldn't discern if they were even real or not real, or, in terms of like being something that was flesh. But their hands were very long and dangly like you see on TV, I swear to you. And I was just like completely shocked. Now, 2 things happened to me after this situation. The first thing was, of course, I scared the hell out of everybody. The second thing was, I kept hearing this voice in my head over and over again. Worldwide telescope, worldwide telescope, worldwide telescope, over and over and over.
The phenomenology of encounters with spirits by shamans, documented in ancient cave art, mirrors modern alien encounters.
We have the same phenomenology in encounters with spirits by shamans, documented in cave art going back tens of thousands of years. We have that phenomenology in encounters with fairies and elves in the Middle Ages, and we have the identical phenomenology in encounters with aliens today. And I think it's obvious. We're looking at the same experience through time, construed through different cultural lenses.
Do you think Gnostic or Kabbalistic traditions have attempted to make deliberate contact? So
I think any tradition that makes use of psychedelics, whether they want to or not, are going to make deliberate contact. I mean, I had on one of my early ayahuasca journeys in the Amazon, I had a typical alien encounter, and I was sitting on a bench outside the shaman's hut, feeling pretty ill, because that's what ayahuasca does with you. And I was having these wild visions, and then I saw not one but several flying saucers up above me, and I saw this characteristic alien face, this sort of heart-shaped, large, dark eyes, materialize up there. And I got the very strong message that they were going to take me away. We're going to take you. And that's where I was a coward. Because I was seeing these things with my eyes closed, and you can often stop visions by opening your eyes. And I opened my eyes and I shouted, "No!"
A shocking research at Imperial College explores psychedelics to understand the phenomenology of these extraordinary experiences.
There's a really important project going on at Imperial College in London. And this is the first time that psychedelics have been trialed with human volunteers, not to see what the therapeutic benefit is, but to understand the phenomenology. And DMT is particularly effective in bringing about entity encounters. Terence McKenna's machine elves, for example. What's happening at Imperial College is that they found a way to keep people in the DMT state for an hour. Normally it's 10 to 15 minutes. Yes, an intravenous drip, and they keep them in a steady DMT state for an hour. And while doing that, they put them in MRI scanners, and they interview them, they talk to them to the extent that they're able to talk. And quite often, with a full-blown DMT journey, you're not able to talk until afterwards. But because they're in the journey for an hour, they're able to process the experience much more effectively than if you're in the journey for 10 minutes. And this is really serious work that's being done at Imperial College. It's being done with large numbers of volunteers.
This is Christopher Timmerman?
Chris Timmerman is the head of the project. Yeah. He's the guy who runs that project, and many other scientists working with him on that project. And they will sit with the volunteers through the whole hour and talk to them. And particularly what they want to know is about entities. What entities are you encountering? Now, some might say, what's the use of this? But I say it's incredibly useful because what they're doing is they're exploring the DMT realm. And these are like early explorers from our time, who went out into the wilderness and came back with stories about what they'd seen. These volunteers are going out into the DMT wilderness and coming back with stories of what they've seen. And the stories are remarkably consistent, that they're encountering the same entities in the same setting. And normally, when large number of people agree on the same experience, we're inclined to define that experience as real. And it's only the prejudices of our civilization that lead us to dismiss it as unreal or as mere hallucinations.
Billy's quest for anomalies led him to delve into the mysteries of ancient civilizations, uncovering secrets long forgotten.
And I was like, what the hell is this? And the more I looked, the more of these anomalies I kept seeing. So it led me down a whole rabbit hole into anomaly hunting. That anomaly hunting got me into researching these ancient civilizations. That's how it happened. That's literally how it happened. So because of that experience, I became an expert in ancient civilizations, literally. That's how I got into it.
And do you feel, is this an example of the...
Yeah, that's the spirit rover right there on the upper left. And there's a lot of anomalies. We've documented so many crazy anomalies over the years. And I can send you some if you want to pop them in there. Just some crazy stuff that made CNN, that made CNBC, Fox News. A lot of our stuff has been featured in the news. We've downloaded over 1 million of these panoramas from the space agencies, and we've now documented over 60,000 anomalies. Things that don't belong there. Human beings are an abandoned seed colony on this planet. And we have had some influence due to people violating what I would call a prime directive. We've been engaged in a way that we weren't supposed to be engaged, and we've been given technologies that have sped us up far past where we should be right now, including here, this AI thing is coming, right? And that's no oversight, no nothing, and it's just being unleashed on us. Again, more advancement in the blink of an eye that we're not ready for, spiritually or consciously.
He firmly believes that there are watchers and observers out there, monitoring and influencing our world, a concept that invites both awe and unease.
And it put us in a predicament. And I believe that there are people out there that are watching us, I do mean people, that are watching us and observing us to see when we're gonna go from being babies that are learning how to crawl, to learning how to walk, to learning how to run, to being adolescents, to even then becoming full, and consciously in the spirit, to becoming full-grown adults. I think that mankind is a baby learning how to crawl. And every now and then when a baby learns how to crawl, it plops down on its stomach, right? Because it has to get the strength. We've plopped down on our stomach a few times. Those will be some of the hiccups in our civilization right now. Eventually, we will grab onto the edge of a table and pull ourselves up and start taking steps.
What are the hiccups?
Hiccups, racism, inquisitions, religion,
maybe
atomic technologies that we're not ready for. All these things are one of the hiccups, right? Police brutality. My dad was killed by police, And so all these things, you look at it, and from a perspective of right now, it looks like things are getting worse. But it's actually the greatest time to be alive. There's no bubonic plague, there's no black plague, there's no Spanish flu. Those things almost wiped out human beings.
Yeah.